untouchable, yeah, she's unstoppable. Tick, 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 hearts on split, split, split. Watch her move, boy, she's your meltdown hit. She walks in like a savior draped in radioactive silk. Promises the future, but her balance starts to tilt. Her heels strike the ground, they call it innovation.
That always takes a minute.
But every move she makes is pure detonation. Tick, tick, watch her light the fuse. Her lips are like ignition, sparks in every word she speaks. She dances through collapse while her empire springs a leak. She's got blueprints in her pocket, chords hidden in her clutch, and every man who follows her forgets she burns too much. Snap, snap, she's the queen of chaos. Tick, 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 watch her take control. She's a meltdown queen with a heart so cold. Snap, 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 you're under.
Hi, I'm Kaylee. I'm a PhD student at MIT studying nuclear science and engineering. Toxic wastewater is actually totally clean and safe.
That's a meltdown queen, James Luce. It's one of the many, many incredible songs James Luce has put out on his YouTube channel, Anti-Nuclear Songs, or Loving Humanity Songs, I think is a better word for it. And she is a meltdown queen, isn't she? You can call into these shows, 709-589-4406. We got the extraordinary story of Kaylee, the serial killer from MIT. It's an extraordinary story because at the time she was making the videos, she was a student at MIT Cambridge, doing her PhD in nuclear. I'm going to play that part there again. I'm not sure if it was clear to everybody. We're going to be having to use the headphones tonight. And that's back like the old days. We used to cover a lot of these people. She embodies everything wrong with nuclear. She's going to university, get a PhD. Clearly, she must be fairly smart. And she chose a career where she feels that she should come out and lie to everybody about every facet of nuclear and Fukushima. I can't reconcile why somebody who can get an education won't find a real job, why they would choose a job where they're actually a serial killers. And she's going to end up murdering hundreds of millions of people with her propaganda. She's quite popular, apparently, on TikTok. Who knows where else. I was just absolutely shocked as I listened to her videos of how much she hates humans and puppies and babies.
Hi, I'm Kaylee. I'm a PhD student at MIT studying nuclear science and engineering. This toxic wastewater is actually totally clean and safe.
Totally clean and safe from Fukushima. The Fukushima disaster contaminated the territory of Japan, the entire country. The Sea of Japan, Korea, South Korea, North Korea, Russia, North America, the South America. Up to 8 orders of magnitude above the global fallout background off the prefecture's coastline. 2013 story. To give you some of this context, congenital heart disease operations rose 14.2% after Fukushima, which meant that out of every 100,000 children, neonates and infants, 14.2% need open heart surgery. There's no way that Kaylee doesn't understand this or know about this. is what I find amazing. Cunningham. So, unfortunately, we come across her on a story. Experts debunk common misconceptions about nuclear waste management, that spent fuel just sits there. Well, the problem with spent fuel is it's splitting atoms, the same atoms it would split to power 1 million homes and 1 million businesses, but doesn't have a containment anymore. It's not in the reactor. And I just felt, after watching a few of her videos, that you don't get to see a serial killer like her too often, that I should address her. Hopefully she's stupid enough to reply. I think what she, and as you'll see coming up, it's absurd that a student would do something like this, that an actual student. Is that the only way she can graduate, I wonder? Kaylee goes on to reveal, now she's not an expert, she was a student, that a method for recycling nuclear waste was actually developed in the 1970s. So what? It was actually, the Purex was developed in 1947 for the Manhattan Project, actually, which, right, for filtering out the plutonium, uranium fission products, but halted in 1977 by President Jimmy Carter because he deemed it too risky, who was a nuclear scientist, actually, nuclear engineer, if I remember correctly. The problem with the nuclear fuel mixed oxide, plutonium mixed oxide fuel reprocessing, you release an absurd amount. And so the La Hague site in France, which has 500 security guards, by the way, and Sellafield, we have a lot of studies showing those two facilities contaminated not just Europe, but the Arctic. They can't contain the emissions. I was just absolutely shocked. Why not nuclear? She's the nuclear. What was it? The nuclear girl, the nuclear lady. It should be right there. We got a lot of these little clips we're going to get through. I'm sorry, Miss Nuclear Energy. That's what she called one of her names. Yeah, there it is there. Miss Nuclear Energy under her name. It's really something. It's heartbreaking when you see students coming out and cutting everybody's throats so they can get extra credits in university. And the thing is, there's a lot of children who look up to her and believe what she's saying, and that's what the industry is counting on, people like her. Like it is more appropriate. As soon as I started listening to her, I hated her guts right away. She likes replying to people who don't know any better. Makes her feel smart, maybe. And she knows she's taking advantage of those people, right? And she comes out and tells lies to justify the deception.
The accident wastewater from the Fukushima Daiichi accident is being discharged into the ocean today.
So this was 2023. The so-called wastewater, which is water poured over a nuclear meltdown. You can't filter something like that, by the way. You're talking about multiple sieverts per liter, which means after 20 minutes, if you did try to filter it, the filter would have thousands of sieverts. And so you put 2.2 sieverts in the filter, and it'll come out the other end at 10, 12 sieverts or more per liter. The reactor actually exploded. It lost, ejected the reactor core and the fuel pools. Kaylee would know this for sure. And then the question is, should she lose her degree? Because wouldn't that make the world a better place if sadistic monsters... Kaylee is definitely a sadistic monster. Cunningham would lose their degrees. I think they should serve significant jail time, too, on top of it. What she's doing, she's aware, is a complete deception. You will be, too, in a moment. So she's saying nothing got out of this reactor, for instance, until 2023. And TikTok, which is Chinese, they're promoting nuclear, so they let her go. She had 2 million plus views on that pack of deceit and dishonesty and cold-blooded genocide she produced. This was a plutonium mixed oxide reactor like she's advocating for. The building doesn't even exist. It actually ejected 4 decades of reactor cores in the 2 fuel pools at the top of the buildings.
It is nothing you have to be worried about.
That's so scary that anybody, particularly a student, would come out and do something like that. But it gets way more bizarre, unfortunately. She said she thinks her job is cool. So coming out and disarming people from defending themselves, which is the best way to poison the children and little girls and little boys and all the puppies and everything else, is cool, according to serial killer Kaylee Cunningham. The fuel pools, by the way, are at the very top of the building. She 100% would know that. She unequivocally knows the fuel is gone, the reactors are gone, and that the damage is catastrophic. And she instead takes the most cowardly route that a person can take. Literally, figuratively, the most cowardly route a person could take.
Back in 2011, there's this massive earthquake that shakes Japan. During the earthquake, the nuclear reactor is actually totally safe. It shuts down normally, everything's good and dandy. Then the earthquake causes a massive tsunami. But the nuclear reactor is still okay because she shut down right. She's chilling, she's got water flowing through her, keeping her cool. And then the power goes out, so there's no electricity.
She's chilling? Imagine saying that about a nuclear meltdown.
Electricity to power the pumps that keep water flowing through the nuclear reactor. Because a nuclear reactor is kind of like cooking with like a pan on the stove.
A reactor is nothing like cooking with a pan on the stove, you sadistic monster. She's an actual monster, right? There's nothing cute about a monster. I can't believe that someone like that could actually exist as a student, be that sadistic. The nuclear plume covered most of North America. Well, this model of the plutonium-239 is based on 20 days up in your right-hand corner. Well, it'll be your left-hand corner, I guess, if you're watching it. That's just 20 days, and that model is only based on venting, is the reality of it. The numbers are not based on the lost inventories. In the video, she got a lot of them. This particular video, she reveals that the spent fuel just sits there, can actually be recycled. It doesn't just sit there, it's cooking. 120,000 liters of water a day is evaporated. Each liter has a catastrophic amount of isotopes released into it. Each liter, 120,000 liters. There's 1,000 fuel pools worldwide. And all nuclear power plants, except for a few, are surrounded by farms as far as you can see, which I'm pretty sure eventually she'll buy stocks in. It's just heartbreaking to see someone that evil, that monstrous at that age, And then you have to assume how much damage she's going to do in her lifetime to children and puppies and animals and whales and everything else. She's an actual serial killer before she's graduated now. But when she was doing these videos, this was a student, a sadistic monster disguised as a student.
You're done cooking and you take the food out of the pan, it's still hot. You gotta run some water on it to get it to cool down.
No, you don't. You can just leave it there. It'll cool down on its own. Nuclear fuel won't. You disgusting parasite. You revolting parasite. How can anybody think of her any less than a parasite? She's an actual predator, but she's a coward, right? Now, she knew the reactors were gone right away, within 3 or 4 days. Well, by day 5, all the reactors had detonated, and all the fuel pools had detonated. And there's zero possibility she didn't see this picture, for instance, of reactor 3 ejecting the reactor core and the fuel pools right out of the building. But she chose the most cowardly route, so she can pretend that she's smart and that she's special to anybody stupid enough to actually know her.
Nuclear reactors, same thing. You gotta keep water running after you turn off the stove to keep it cool. So no electricity to power the pumps means no water flowing through the core of the reactor, which means she got real spicy real quick.
How can you not dislike this person? You know, whenever I cook something on the stove, I absolutely take it off and put it under the kitchen sink for a decade to cool down. I mean, this is an actual monster we're talking about. How many more like that are out there is the most frightening thing anybody can conceive. How can she ever look anybody in the eye or even look in a mirror? This is reactor 1 and reactor 3 detonating, by the way. After 2 to 3 years, she claims the rods are removed from the reactor. No, the first lot is removed after about 14 months. Not 2 or 3 years. And cooled in large pools of water and stored in secured canisters. The majority of the spent fuel is kept in ponds. It's very little, maybe 16% is actually today, 80 years after the nuclear industry started wrecking all the species, are in the so-called canisters / casts.
The power plant site did have backup diesel-powered generators to power the pumps in an emergency like this. But they stored the pumps in the basement that flooded when the tsunami hit. So again, no electricity, no pumps, hot reactor. Which, by the way, after this accident, every nuclear reactor in the United States was retrofitted with safety systems that rely on gravity and convection currents to pump the water, so this cannot happen again.
Of course, this can happen again. The fuel pools are at the top of the buildings. A lot of the reactors in the United States can be taken out by a tornado. Her level of wickedness is next level. Every reactor can melt down. And United States has 71 identical reactors to Fukushima. They're made with the exact same blueprint, the same schematics. They're identical in color, shape, size. Just because you got backup water sitting there, that don't mean you can't have an event. If you have an earthquake, a tornado, you crack the pool, it's going to melt down, for instance. If you lose circulation in the pool for more than a couple of hours, it'll melt down. Reactor 4 to your left doesn't exist anymore. And it's hard to comprehend how evil. She's actually sitting there eating food while she's making her evil and monstrous, insidious video. It's almost too much to bear. can't comprehend this kind of evil. I'm praying that there's not more like this monster out there. She said, meanwhile, France went ahead with recycling nuclear fuel. So what? And now it gets 80% of its energy from nuclear power. No, it don't. It gets 70%. Leading the world in her alleged version of clean energy. France used 70% of its fresh water goes to the nuclear industry. The rivers over the last couple of years have went completely dry because the glaciers down there have been destroyed by 80 years of emissions from the nuclear industry.
Spicy reactor, no way to cool it down. We end up with
Spicy reactor. It's just, how is this even possible that somebody at that age can be this evil? How is that possible?
the Fukushima Daiichi accident. Nuclear meltdown.
So disconnected from the significance of it that she's eating food as she's telling the biggest lie in human history. Clearly, she has no conscience whatsoever. Zero. Truly one of the worst humans I've ever come across. And my goodness, you know, like there's Robert Hayes out there. Thank goodness she's not hooked up with
After the
someone like
earthquake
that.
and the tsunami and the nuclear accident, this poor country needs to figure out some way
This poor country. It's the third biggest economy on the planet.
to cool down the reactor and clean up the mess. So they start
Clean up the mess. It's a nuclear meltdown, for goodness sakes. Don't just clean up the mess. You contaminated the entire planet with radioactive fallout.
taking water from the ocean and pumping it through the reactor to cool it down.
Which was one of the biggest mistakes in human history. Because the sulfur, when it hits these enormous temperatures, is liberated. And it creates these spherical balls that are able to ingest the uranium, plutonium, the curium isotopes, which, by the way, are the biggest byproduct of the radiative fuel rods. And you end up with what's known as a sulfur peroxide hydrogen buckyball. These are known as super hot particles. And the salt water is changed into a weapon that goes around the planet looking for victims forever. And the amount we're talking about is catastrophic.
This water scoops up like a magnet, attracts all these little fission products, and now it's
Doesn't attract all the fission products. It's poured over the melted reactors. So it's picking up fuel particulates. The fuel itself, particulates, are splitting atoms. She's so evil. She probably thinks that it's normal to be this evil. Imagine, as a kid, she probably tortured puppies, I would imagine.
that are contaminated. So it goes into these giant storage containers on the Fukushima site.
First off, if you take the fuel, the water, you're pouring over, and you're pouring water over a nuclear meltdown. If you so-called vacuum that up, and you put it in a big tank, which is what she's alleging, which is the official story. Those tanks are empty, by the way. Normally the reactor, a single reactor, uses enough water each day, 4,500 tons a minute, 1 million gallons a minute, is enough to fill all the tanks 6 times each day from a single reactor. So if you take this stuff at 2.2 sieverts a liter, we're only acknowledging beta, by the way, and you put it in a tank, you're looking at about 1.4 million sieverts in a tank. 3 sieverts is a lethal dose to a human after a couple of minutes of standing next to it. It starts to melt their organs. 10 sieverts is a lethal dose right away. Within 10 or 15 minutes, their organs are going to melt. 1.4 million sieverts per tank. Now we're only acknowledging beta. There's gammas and alphas and neutrons. So whatever you're going to get in beta, you're going to get at least 3 times more in the other emitters. You can't walk past the tank without getting a lethal dose. You can't build another tank on the site. And because you're built on the tectonic plates, about 40 miles from the tectonic plates, which in the scope of tectonic plates, you're on the tectonic plates. So you have to be significantly worried about another earthquake that could disconnect the tanks, and now you have to abandon the site forever. So it's safe to assume the tanks are empty. It's safe to assume they know this. And that you can't build another tank alongside of a tank full of this stuff. She understands the average person has no concept.
It's actually pretty easy to remove all of these fission products from the water. So
you can't remove the fission products from the water because it's not like you're filtering water for your house, for instance, sediment or something. To give you context of it, in 2011, about 4 months later after Fukushima, Tokyo area had around 50,000 one-ton bags of sediment from the water filtration facilities that was so radioactive they couldn't get rid of. Imagine how radioactive the water at the site is going to be when it's so radioactive in the water filtration system 240 kilometers away, you couldn't get rid of it. It's just, clearly she thought about this a lot. How do I manipulate people and deceive people? Is this her thesis, I wonder, for her degree or PhD? Is to come out with these videos to hoodwink the population?
Oh, that's what Japan did. The tricky guy to remove is this little dude called tritium. Tritium.
Originally, by the way, you can't filter out, and let me explain that to you. It's just embarrassing because she knows the average person has no idea. And she's willing to cut everybody's throat on the planet, every kid, every child, every baby, so she can get her degree. That's basically what we're seeing with Kaylee. She's a ruthless monster. She's a meltdown queen in every sense of that word. Here's the truth about the filtration system. In 2013, in February, these images were released. This is the ALPS system, the ALPS decontamination system. In 2014, in August, almost the end of 2014, they were hoping to have the ALPS system operational. So the amount of water they claimed they were spraying every day was about 140 tons. A garden hose is about 120 tons a day at 30 pounds per square inch. So what she's saying is that they split a garden hose 4 ways, a half-inch garden hose, 4 ways, and then each one of those streams were sprayed on the reactor, and that's what they were recovering each day, and they were put into the tanks. It's just, I don't understand that kind of evil. I can't reconcile why somebody thinks it's necessary to take it to this level. Unless they're a monster inside. They're a real life monster. Then it kind of makes some sense, right? I think and that's what I believe we're looking at. Kaylee is an actual real life monster, disguised as a human. So here's the reality. The tanks were all full, by the way, in 2013. And remember, in 2014, they still didn't have the operation system, the alleged filtration system, working, right? This was 2013. In 2013, the BBC posted this video. This is Rupert Winfield Hayes telling you and TEPCO they have no control over the water, and all the tanks were full in 2013 from an aquifer underneath the site.
Fukushima plant sits smack in the middle of an underground aquifer. Deep beneath the ground, the site is rapidly being overwhelmed by water. Beneath the surface, water flows downhill and into the basement of the damaged reactor buildings. There it is contaminated with high levels of radiation. To stop the groundwater flowing on into the nearby ocean, engineers are building an underground barrier. But that is causing the groundwater level to rapidly rise. It's now so high the water will soon reach the surface. Then it will start flowing overground into the sea. This week, the company that owns Fukushima, TEPCO, made this disturbing admission.
We understand that this water discharge is beyond our control, and we do not think the current situation is good.
It's not clear what it can do is to pump out the contaminated groundwater and put it in storage tanks. But after just 2 years, the site is already jammed with more than 1,000 giant tanks. Most of them are already full up. At least 400 tons of new water pours into the site every day, and it's going to continue for years and years. Fukushima's water crisis has only just begun. Rupert Wingfield Hayes, BBC News in Tokyo.
It's just, my goodness.
Is basically just fancy hydrogen. So instead of just a proton, hydrogen on...
Now she's talking about tritium again. She's not calling it tritium-3H. She's referring to natural tritium from the solar system. And pre-nuclear industry, there was around 1,100 kilograms of it in all the oceans combined. Sellafield and La Hague and Donneray in the United Kingdom, fuel reprocessing facilities, had tripled that in the first decade of the nuclear industry. She's not even going to call it tritium-3H.
The periodic table, we have a proton and 2 neutrons. 2 plus 1, 3. Now, tritium is formed. It actually naturally exists in water already, like this water that I am drinking.
Man. Oh, man. Evil on a different level, eh? Probably one of the most dangerous players in the nuclear industry is right there. Clearly, she should lose her degree and spend a couple of decades in a jail cell.
Has tritium in it. Tritium.
The tritium she's referring to is from the solar system. It's a very small amount. It's got nothing to do with the tritium-3H, the man-made tritium. And did she do this for grades?
Is basically just fancy hydrogen. So instead of just a proton, hydrogen, on the periodic table, we have a proton and 2 neutrons. 2 drinking has tritium in it. Tritium forms because sometimes we have hydrogen, like in water, just hanging out, vibing, doing its thing, and we see a neutron introduced that smacks into that hydrogen and bonds to form deuterium. That's 1 proton, 1 neutron bonded together. And then when deuterium gets smacked by a neutron, then we end up with tritium. This happens because we see neutrons coming from fusion in the sun trickle down onto Earth and interact with things like water.
She's conflating the natural tritium from the solar system with anthropogenic man-made tritium. And then she's also implying by these statements that nothing got out, only tritium. Why so evil? I got another way to explain that part. Just bear with me 1 second. It's just very disappointing that people like this actually exist. There he is, Mr. Munster. This is a South Korean professor of nuclear and quantum engineering. I'm going to show you. Young Jong-il is the author, is a professor at the Department of Nuclear Quantum Engineering at KAS, which is a South Korean institute. He's like Robert Hayes. He's another Robert Hayes, right? He says that the one point, and this is what the nut job Kaylee is saying, the same narrative. 1.3 million tons of water in the plant. Now, I showed you the video of BBC in 2013 telling you the tanks were all full. I showed you in the same video TEPCO saying they had no control of the water whatsoever. I also showed you the documentation that the ELP system didn't operate until at least late 2015, because late 2014 they were hoping to have a test trials by the end of the year. So you have a professor, again, of nuclear and quantum engineering, saying that the entire inventories from multiple nuclear meltdowns was equal to 2.2 grams of tritium. Not even tritium-3H. Not even the courage or the fortitude to call it by its appropriate name. The discharge, he says, is like throwing a sugar cube of 3 grams of sugar into the ocean. So he's equating and conflating a nuclear meltdown with 3 grams of sugar. So it's pretty hard to get a little any more eviler than that, I suppose. But she's definitely working on it.
As many of you know, is called H2O. That's because we have 2 hydrogens bonded to 1 oxygen. When we have tritium in water, sometimes that tritium atom or isotope can knock hydrogen off of the water molecule and take its place. And that means it's bonded to the molecule. And once it's bonded,
eating food was she's deceiving as 2 million people who watched her video.
it's a pain in the butt to remove. But again, it already naturally exists in
So now she's saying that it's completely harmless as natural.
water. In this Fukushima accident water, there just happens to be a little extra because of those pesky bonds. Japan.
Can you imagine this kind of evilness? Imagine if that was your child.
Spent literally the last 12 years working with the smartest people in the entire world. Literally, it was an international effort.
James couldn't take it anymore. Hi, James. You couldn't take it anymore, could you?
Well, I just made an observation. I just stumbled on something. I just realized that, she had 2 million of this or that. Well,
Yep.
That's what that pancake influencer from Thai had, 2 million followers. And then just saw another story today, a Vietnamese influencer with 2 million followers telling people to go to Fukushima.
Wow.
It's all good there. So
Wow.
They're definitely, the nuclear industry is, they're buying these
Influencers,
kind
yeah.
of it's like scam ads where they get into these news aggregators and then the news story gets up to these what people think is legitimate, like MSN or something. So they see this story about a Thai influencer is going to Fukushima, and they just hope that they normalize.
And they turn it into a big story, like a big media role, where all kinds of media will come out and make a big story out of that because an influencer went to Fukushima and liked it.
It's the nuclear industry paying for it all.
Yeah,
so
100%.
For the camera people.
Good point. Yeah,
they set it all up to make it look like it's legitimate.
that's right. Good point, actually.
That's the whole funny thing about it. It's so fake.
Yeah, it's
And
so
now you've got
obvious.
this
Yeah.
fake- this blonde, this nobody blonde. Oh my God, she's a nightmare.
She is,
She's
yeah.
playing off, being all manipulative. you imagine what she's like to her dad? Like, oh, I want this, I want that. And she's like, all right, fine, I'll give you whatever you want. You know, and she's got everything like that her whole life. I guarantee it. So somebody went to her, and they're like, hey, we really think you're smart. You got a great look. And they're just exploiting the hell out of her.
Yeah, in
and
fact,
they're propping her up, making her think like, oh, yeah, nuclear energy is the best thing. We need a girl like you to, like, tell everybody off.
That's 100% fact.
In her own, that's all it is.
Put on a pedestal, told she's smart, given everything for nothing, make some videos as her for her class, so to speak. That's how she got her degree, I would imagine, right, is by making these videos. She couldn't do it like every other smart student. She had to come out and destroy people's lives. You know,
right, and she comes across all overly confident, like eating in front of you. Like, that's
crazy.
Warfare, like.
It is so, isn't it? I was thinking that, you know, this afternoon when I was looking at it. I was saying, who's coaching her, right? She's obviously, the video is all these little moments, right? Little one sentences clipped together. She put a lot of work into it, right? Because clearly she sat there at MIT or wherever she is at that point. It kind of looks like she's in a nuclear plant or something, right? You can see the gauges on the wall and the pipes everywhere. She's in universities while she's doing it. I don't know. I would, when you watch a bunch of her videos, you come to the conclusion that there's somebody else there in the room with her helping her, for sure. Go ahead, James. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, it's totally that. It's all fake. It's all completely fake.
Yeah.
Every single one of the people that follow her are just mesmerized with her look.
That's right,
and
Joe.
what she's saying, because it's so different. Like, how many blondes out there at her age are not filled with tattoos everywhere, kind of acting conservative? You know what I mean? The nuclear industry loves that. They're like, oh, yeah, we got this normal
clean cut. Yeah, very clean cut. Nice teeth. Looks presentable.
Yeah, the hair's not overdone. She's kind of nerdy in a way.
She's working really hard to sell every sentence, too, right? You obviously picked up on that. Yeah. She's recited it a few times.
But this is the pattern. So the nuclear industry is bombarding, like the U.S., the Western populace, the young populace that are seeing this. They're consuming this.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they're going over to other countries and trying to get the same crowd, the same demographic of these, trendy people that just want to fit in, and they're just concerned about, oh, I'm following people that 3 million people have. It's all a popularity concept. That's all it is. It's completely stupid.
It's just, I find it terrifying, eh? I don't know if you noticed it, but I'm actually still shocked with what she's doing. I'm just shocked that somebody that age, and a female in particular, could be that soulless, who's educated, knows the difference. Clearly, she's in her last year of school, right? So she knows the difference.
The nuclear industry loves that. I mean, they're all. I mean, think about all the money they spend on PR.
Just
now
throw money at her.
Blonde that can speak nuclear language and say she's from MIT. Like, who would disagree with her?
That's right.
If anyone said,
good point.
I don't agree
Great
with
point,
her.
actually.
What? You don't agree with her? She's fucking awesome.
And that's what they're counting on, isn't it? Yeah.
That's all it is.
Yeah. Good point,
That's all they got, though. That's the thing that's crazy, because they're hoping that will win over what you're doing.
Yeah.
Which is just like showing the
it will, 100%. I can't compete with something like that. And so when I seen the video, I was like, well, I got to come out and challenge that. That's just,
right.
It's just,
well,
she's obviously got a big ego. And she most likely at some point will show up on this video and look at it. And she's so disconnected, she'll probably watch the whole thing. And she'll find lots of flaws with me. I'm not cute. I'm not young. I'm not hip. I'm not this. I'm not that. She'll look down on me.
Thing.
Yeah.
Like, Dana doesn't think tritium is it's one of the radioactive. It's like, no, you don't get it.
She'll come
with
a million.
Understand how rare tritium is in nature?
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
You're going to equate that with the massive amount of becquerels. They're just
Everything is tritiated now because of the nuclear industry, right? All
It's like,
all the
you don't
water
have
on the
to go
planet
to
is
the moon now to
tritiated.
get helium-3, you know?
Yeah.
It's already the case.
Well,
Like, just go mine the ocean, you know? Don't go to the moon. But anyway, I mean, like, I don't
I
want
love
to
it. No, I love it. That's great. No, that's wonderful, James. And it's
But I
really
just wanted to
important to
chime
get
in on that.
another insight too, right? And I love. By the way, I love that pancake song we played last night. I downloaded that right away. I was going to do a short video on that on Sunday, but I went back out on the skidoo, right? And I haven't lost track of it or nothing. But I thought that was just amazing song, man. And I knew you read the same story as me, and you were like, I'm not. I can't take
One day
that.
I'll do it behind the scenes, like what it takes to do this. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, it was just such a fun conversation having with AI. I'm like, can you believe it? They got this pancake. They're like, and it's just back and forth. Like, no, we got to fix this. You know, we got to get this out. You know,
I love it.
You know, it's just,
Yeah.
like I have a team.
When you know what you're doing.
On my next thing, so let me let you go.
Okay, buddy. Loves you, buddy. You take care,
All right.
man.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Yeah. Okay, bye-bye. That's James Lucid. You know James. James is in the comments section. And we play his music at the beginning of the shows and at the end of the shows. He's doing all the video work himself with AI and all the music. And his collection is unparalleled. It's the biggest collection in history on the entire planet, bar nobody. Like, he has itched out a spot in history on many different levels, right? The first person ever to use AI music as a anti-nuclear, is first person to create video and music together, and anti-nuclear music. He's created more anti-nuclear music than everybody combined in history, and then some, probably double whatever anti-nuclear music existed. James has doubled that. And I can tell you right now, he's got every genre almost covered. And I mean, man, I got so many of his favorite songs now. There's no denying what he's an influencer for me, right? If you could be an influencer for me when it comes to nuclear, you're definitely top notch. Back to the monster, Kaylee, the psychopath monster, the serial killer who looks like a normal everyday girl.
Spent literally the last 12 years working with the smartest people in the entire world. Literally, it was an international effort to figure out a way to reduce the amount of tritium in.
So the industry at this, when is 80 years old, say. So in 80 years, they haven't come up with a solution? But magically, at a multiple nuclear meltdown with 8 fuel pools, a total of 36 reactor cores melted down in the same spot, they figured it out. And the only thing there was tritium. Like, it's hard to imagine she is real. You think she might be AI. Maybe that's AI who looks like a person. Nobody could be this evil.
In the water. Until the amount of tritium in the water was back down to the normal level that already exists in the water we eat, sleep, drink, bathe in.
Think about how sadistic you gotta be to do what she just done. Man. And you can see the contempt in her face when she's doing it. Holy man, that is one of the scariest things I've ever seen. One of the coldest things I ever seen. Watch this again.
The normal level that already exists in the water we eat, sleep, drink, bathe in today. Actually,
Wow. I gotta save that clip. That is absurdly evil. Shouldn't it be illegal to be this evil? Shouldn't it be a crime to be a monster like Kaylee is? Shouldn't there be some kind of penalty for doing what she's doing? Shouldn't she get like $1 billion fine for being so monstrous?
We got to see this system firsthand at the TEPCO Research and Development Center. It's legit. Honestly, it's nothing to freak out about, you guys. It's not that deep. Y'all getting worked up over nothing.
Yeah. There's monsters, and then there's people like Kaylee. She could probably get a job with any of these medias, I would imagine. These are just a fraction. This is ABC Australia, Cecilia Vega. They're all pretending are on top of Reactor 4. 140 to 150 feet above the stump to your left. So what she was trying to do is convince you that only tritium was the isotope that got out. I got the remedy for that one. It's so sad, eh? It's so sad that people like this actually exist. Just bear with me. I'm getting stuff ready here. So she's saying only tritium got out, and she went on and on and on about the tritium. The tritium. There we go. The tritium. So according to Kaylee, only tritium got out of the reactor. And don't worry, because everybody drinks it.
The normal level that already exists in the water we eat, sleep, drink, bathe in today.
All right. So one Fukushima may destroy the whole country. Investigation chairman in Japan. Who are you going to believe? You're going to believe Kaylee or the investigated chairman from Japan? Another study was 1 million atoms of xenon-133. This wasn't the only one. If you find xenon-133, this is on the ground per square meter in Canada, United States. And this was 20 days of radioactive fallout. But don't worry, because Kaylee told you there's only tritium. Not even tritium-3H, for goodness sakes. Another study at 20 million particles. That's 20 million pulses of energy, almost at the speed of light every second. Which the university in Canada claimed that was insignificant. Of course, we know the difference. They're no different than Kaylee, the monster, right? But she wants you to believe, no, nothing got out. There was 40 million atoms in California in a single bed of kelp of iodine-131. For every iodine-131, there's 10 times more 132, 30 times more 133, 31 times more iodine-129. Iodine-129, of course, has a 15 million year half-life. And the biggest byproduct of the radiated fuel rod is the curium isotopes. Curium, like the 244, needs lead shielding 20 times thicker than plutonium-239. And so when you see these particular anomalies, by the way, the 131 is unbelievably affected ionizing and radiating the thyroid glands of all 8 million species, humans included. But the 132, which is at 10 times more per 131 and 30 times more iodine-132 for every iodine-131, are 9 times more effective at ionizing and radiating the thyroid glands than the brutally effective iodine-131 is. Is iodine-131 killing babies in Philadelphia? 48% rise in deaths for children? Most likely that was the curium and plutonium and neptunium isotopes. Neptunium-239 decays to plutonium-239 after 2.5 days. Comparison with X-rays and CAT scans are meaningless. Inhaling, consuming, drinking these particles and physical atoms increases the radiation exposure by a factor of 1 trillion. When the radiation is in your body, it's pulsing energy almost at the speed of light. It's wrecking your chromosomes, your DNA, your cells, etc., etc. Your body tries to repair that every second. It's being hit by energy almost at the speed of light every second. It can't keep up with it. So your body is producing massive amounts of white blood cells to attack the damage and the source every second. That's forever. And so there's 100% cause and effect. The Xenon-133 in another study was that's the University of Texas researchers, was 450,000 times above detection levels. So you got iodines, you got xenon. Let's keep going here. High concentrations of radiation hit the United States and Canada. None of these, by the way, mentions tritium, do they? Plumes was rich in cesium-137. By the way, all of this will tritiate the water. Wherever it's to, the water now is tritiated. Kaylee is such a dishonest person. You assume her father must have severely abused her as a child or something to be that sadistic. Cesium-137 plume, and in the most evil way possible. Cesium-137 plume forecast from North America and Europe up to March the 24th. Cesium-137 pulses energy 600 feet every second, by the way. This is the French government's Institute for Radiological Protection and Nuclear Safety, the IRSN. So the study, based on the first 8 days, was 1 million to 10 million atoms, or times previous detection levels. So 30 million atoms of cesium-137 per cubic meter of air. The model you're looking at now is based on 8 days. I got the model here for 31 days. And they picked up 30 million one-ton bags of cesium in Fukushima. None of that was tritium. 30 million one-ton bags. She wants you to think of tritium. The food was banned by 55 countries for a decade. So this is the radioactive plume based on 16 days at 1 million to 10 million atoms of cesium-137 per cubic meter of air. So you can't just have cesium-137. The sulfur peroxide, hydrogen buckyballs, the iodine-131, and you can mathematically deduct 132, 133. And the damage is permanent. The iodines have a short half-life, same as the xenon, but the damage is permanent. But then there's all these long-lived isotopes. Cesium-137 immediately damages the heart muscles. This was a Neptunium-239 dispersals. And the thing to remember about all of this is it causes not just cancers, which are typically latent to heart problems and liver problems and lung problems and respiratory and pituitary and thyroid and adrenaline and Alzheimer's and dementia and autism and diabetes. And lo and behold, when I go through her video, I see no other than Robert Hayes, the real-life monster.
Hi. I'm here at the American Nuclear Society's annual meeting in Orlando. And right now, I'm chairing the topical meeting of the Radiation Protection
Look at the fake face on her. Watch
and
this.
Shielding Division. And we have a plenary here at ANS on nuclear advocacy, hence the need for Kaylee.
Hi.
She's doing research
He's awful close to her, isn't he?
on her PhD at the University of Florida in fission gas release.
Yes, I am studying nuclear fuel.
He's a sadistic demon, isn't he? He's a professor down there in Florida of nuclear engineering. He's always posting videos on YouTube.
Materials, which fission gas release is essentially just nuclear fuel burping.
Nuclear fuel burping. Look at Robert Hayes. He can't stop laughing.
So, gases are produced. Talk with my hands. Gases are
These gases, these isotope plumes, attack everything with replicating cells forever. You can't destroy it, even in incinerators.
Produced from fission, and those gases have a tendency to cause the fuel to swell up because they cluster together to form bubbles, and those bubbles eventually form tunnels to the surface and release, almost like when you drink something fizzy and it causes your stomach to swell up a little, and then you release it as a burp.
Man, what a sadistic monster.
Very cool. And we're here to talk about nuclear advocacy.
Yes, we are. So, I will be talking about at the panel session how important nuclear advocacy is, especially here on TikTok. So all of you guys out here know that there are opportunities in the nuclear energy industry. If we want to meet our climate change goals by 2050, our workforce needs to more than triple. Okay, we have like 100,000 people. We need like 300,000 people. And that's from a study that the Department of Energy did. Like, they actually did the math. So if we want to meet those goals, we need more of you in the nuclear energy industry.
Come join us.
Come check it out.
Can you imagine how sadistic she actually is? Tangled up with Robert Hayes, of all people?
Hey, I'm Kaylee. I'm a PhD student at MIT studying nuclear science and engineering. There are actually plenty of everyday materials that are radioactive that are totally safe to be around, and you probably have them in your home. This includes granite countertops, smoke detectors, cigarettes, bananas, glass, kitty litter. Oh yeah, and...
Can you imagine? She actually said bananas. She equated a nuclear meltdowns with bananas. It's easy to know she's hooked up with Robert Hayes when you hear stuff like that. It's unconscionable that she said that. Let me explain the difference between what she's saying and man-made radiation. And a little bit of problem. Sometimes, well, the operating system I'm using is, here we go. The difference is just unimaginable. Hang on, I'll find it for you. It's better for you to see it so you can appreciate that she's actually a monster. La 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 la. It always takes a second. Or longer. Come on. You can't compare bananas to fuel. To something that's gone through a chain reaction. Just bear with me. Let me do this again. Here we go. The whole story is crazy when you think about what she's doing is the oldest trick in the book, unfortunately. There we go. So, Cesium-137 has 88 curies per gram. A curie is 37 billion physical atoms, 37 billion decays. And a decay is the wrong word, but that's the word they're using to manipulate you. It's a pulse of energy almost at the speed of light. And in order to have that pulse of energy, you need a physical atom. So, a gram of Cesium-137 is 88 times 37 billion, 4 trillion atoms or something. So when you conflate and equate bananas and granite or natural, harmless, stupid, everyday background radiation, like potassium-40, it's 71 10 millionths of a curry per gram. That's what we're talking about. It's so far-fetched for her to say radiation is everywhere, so therefore don't worry about it. And the problem is, it's not a crime to poison you with radiation, so it's not a crime for monsters like her to come out and lie. It's actually not a crime to be a monster like Kaylee.
Bananas, glass, kitty litter. Oh yeah, and water. The media has been freaking out over this Fukushima water being released back into the ocean after it was treated for contamination. Well, because the water is technically considered radioactive in the same sense that this water is radioactive, and so is the smoke detector in this room.
Yeah, which is americium-241. They make 1 billion smoke detectors a year, and each one gets a little tiny speck of americium-241. So they don't have to store it for 1 billion years. The food was banned in 55 countries and 14 prefectures for a decade, not because of tritium. She wants you to fixate on tritium, because that's the coward thing to do. That's what monsters do. And she could be prosecuted along with Robert Hayes, successfully prosecuted under the racketeering statutes.
Are presenting themselves to medical professionals as an arbiter of truth and as a neutral referee and a reliable referee of the truth. And they know that those medical professionals are relying on journal articles to treat patients, and that if they tell a lie, if they're committing fraud, that they can injure and kill people. So, I believe they can be prosecuted, and not only can they be prosecuted for those injuries, but they can be prosecuted on the racketeering statutes for promoting fraud.
For promoting fraud. And that's what many she's very conscious of what she's doing as a lie. She's putting a lot of effort and a lot of facial expressions, time, energy into telling the lie. The disrespect of what she's doing is really special. She's the best the nuclear industry can find. That's the sad truth too, right? She's probably making a lot of money. She probably volunteered for it. And she probably figures that's the only way she's going to graduate is if she learns to be a monster like her idols. It's just so disappointing that people like that can actually exist. And that's how they get their kicks. They get their kicks by being monsters, by deceiving and manipulating the most vulnerable of society, and throwing all of the children and the people and their friends and families and the animals on this planet under the bus, so that they can be put on a pedestal and pretend that they're... Because like when you see her, she was so... The excitement of her going to be on a stage at a nuclear conference was palpable. She reveled in that. You can see it in her whole expression. It was one of the few real expressions I've ever seen in her face. This is a map of the research expeditions I carried out for 6 years from Vancouver, British Columbia, to Alaska. And that was one of the zodiacs I have. The species to your left are actually exterminated because of Fukushima, 5,500 miles away. You'll never take the pictures again. And that's why we've done 6 years. We went back for 5 more years. The species to your left now are exterminated. So if you took a glass of the ocean water, it typically had 1 billion creatures. And 75 to 100 million of them were the phytoplankton, the bases of the food chain, the oxygen chain, the carbon sequestering chain. But what the reality of it is, if you plowed in that whole coastline, the species from down deeper would just fill up the gap. If you dug up the whole coastline, the visible low tide zones, and put it on a big barge and drove away with it, the species from the 1 million species per glass of salt water would just recede the whole coastline right away. And the species down deeper would come up there because that's prime real estate. It's exterminated. Last year, or the year before, almost the end of 2023, it came out 10 billion snow crabs had vanished. And what happened was a lot of the phytoplankton will sink to the bottom. And they're very radioactive. It sterilizes the crabs in increments over the decade or so. And they just stopped reproducing and disappeared. That is 4 times more than the entire harvest of the entire history of the snow crab fishery in Alaska is now disappeared. In other words, it's the permanent end of the industry. It's gone forever. But Kaylee, as long as she gets her kicks, as long as she's put on a pedestal and gets to wear a dress, as long as somebody tells her that she's clever, nice one, I caught the audio for the big sneeze got through. It's just unbelievable. It's just unbelievable that the meltdown queen, which is Kaylee, actually exists and has zero qualms about destroying everybody's life so she can get a decent, what she considers a decent job being a monster. James Lucid donated $300 the weekend, by the way. I just forgot to mention that last night. And that's what got me all the stuff I was talking about last night. I was just so disappointed in people like Kaylee Cunningham that desperate to fit in or whatever the case may be. There's no reason to be a monster. I can't come up with a reason why she thinks it's acceptable to be a monster. Because, like, she made so many of those videos up on her TikTok channel. I'm going to play a Meltdown Queen, which is a song I started off with, by the way. I just love that song, Meltdown Queen. It's such a wonderful song James created. Just going to highlight it so I can find it in a second. Yeah, that really irked me when I seen her yesterday, and I was like, there's no way that I can't come out and challenge her. There's just, I won't be able to look in a mirror ever again if I don't come out and challenge the insidious, monstrous, demonic demon Kaylee Cunningham. And that's why we got that poll tonight. Would the world be a better place if sadistic monsters like Kaylee Cunningham lose their degrees? So this is James Lewis's site, and some merchandise from my site he's got up there. Bless his heart, I just love that. And I won't be offended if he changes the picture ever, but I really appreciated him putting that picture up there. That was really special. It's just, he's got so much music there, I can't begin to articulate how special this man actually is. How privileged we should all be feeling that he has posted and created all this music. Because I think music is probably the best weapon we got on the planet. I'm just going to check my audio before and make sure it's in 1080 before I go pop. And then we'll play this video. This is Meltdown Queen. This perfectly describes Kaylee Cunningham. Let's hope it gets the audio right tonight. I screwed up last night, I noticed. We'll see everybody on the next show. We've got a major, just absurd amount of rain tomorrow. So all the snow is gone. Next day, tomorrow night, everything's going to freeze. Then it's going to be like that all the next day. But then the day after that, it's going to be another massive flood of rain. And then it's going to freeze for a day. And then we got another day, massive rainfall. I've never seen nothing like it before. The whole province is going to lose every inch of snow. Everything is gone. We're probably going to get a lot more snow after this. I mean, if this was a snowstorm, we'd be talking 3 or 4 feet of snow. But it's going to be chaos to see that much rain in the middle of winter with 4 feet of frost in the ground. It's going to be brutal floods. Anyway, we'll see everybody tomorrow night. I got an amazing show for tomorrow night. We'll see you on the next show. Don't forget to vote. Give me a thumbs up. I'm going to close down the poll after this video. Have a great night and a great day tomorrow. We'll see everybody tomorrow night. Hugs for everybody. Take care.
She's untouchable, yeah, she's unstoppable. Tick, tick, tick. Hearts on split, split, split. Watch her move, boy. She's your meltdown hit. She walks in like a savior draped in radioactive silk. Promises the future, but her balance starts to tilt. Her heels strike the ground, they call it innovation. But every move she makes is pure detonation. Tick, tick, watch her light the fuse. Her lips are like ignition, sparks in every word she speaks. She dances through collapse while her empire springs a leak. She's got blueprints in her pocket, cores hidden in her clutch, and every man who follows her forgets she burns too much. Snap, snap, she's the queen of chaos. Tick, 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 watch her take control. She's a meltdown queen with a heart so cold. Snap, 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 you're under her spell. She's the meltdown queen and she does it so well. Break it down. She keeps a coded suitcase, her secrets stitched in seams. Her nails are brushed with graphite, her plans are laced with schemes. They call her the solution, but her lies are all on tape. And when the fallout settles, there's no chance to escape. Now you're caught in her trap. Shaman Marianne. Oh, she's flawless, she's insane. Your dream girl, your nightmare, your chain reaction flame. She's untouchable, unshakable, impossible to tame. But when she melts down, boy, you'll forget her name. Tick, tick, she's the game you'll lose. Ooh. Tick, 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 she's a chain reaction. Every step she takes leaves destruction. Snap, 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 her game is supreme. Meltdown queen, she's the star of your dream. You don't even know. She's a perfect weapon, her brilliance blinding clear. Her plans are sealed in circuits and she smiles to engineer. But every corporation crowns her of the prize, while the ocean full and cities vaporize. Tick, tick, she's the queen of disguise. Tick, 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 she's untouchable, unstoppable. She'll steal your soul, leave you unlovable. Snap, 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 what's left to say? Meltdown queen and she'll blow